Okay. Sorry, I lost the piece.
Kick off.
Oh, it's a minute. Oh, I was waiting ready. Good morning.
Oh my God, Krishna.
It's all the way up. The knot. There we go.
Who's gonna do this when you're done?
Rishikesh was coming.
I'll Google it. Like she showed me everything.
If he's not here, he can still be here by 6 a.m., right? Rishikesh?
Yeah, it will be here by 6. I can do it.
Okay. Hershey.
Hershey.
That's Hershey. Because the
All I ever
Indians,
learned.
they didn't say like Rishikesh, was totally different spelling. Krishna Krishna Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Dinamine
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishna Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Dinamine
Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Vacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Astatya Vishatarine
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Vacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Achyatya Vishatarine
Samsara Davana Vidaloka Pranaya Karunya Ganaganatam Tasya Kalyana Gunarnavasya Vande Guru Vicharanada Vindam Mahaprabhu Kirtanan Vidyadita Vadvikramadyan Manasavasena
Mahaprabhu Kirtana Vidyadita Vadikamadhyam maya sorasena.
Panchatam Pastukaram Bhavajo Vande Buddha Sri Charanarvindam
Vadikamadhyam pasutam padmajo. Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam.
Sri Vigrahara Dhananityanana Sangaratam Mandiram Arjanada
Vividdhara Dhananityanana. Vividdhara Mandiram Arjanado.
Tasya Bhaktam Sanyudato Vande Buddha Sri Charanarvindam
Yutasya bhakta Jayunjatopi. Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam.
Chaturidasi Bhagavata Sada Sadhana Kirtan Hari Bhakta Sandhan
Sadhurina Sri Bhagavata Sadam. Sadhana Kirtan Hari Bhakta Sangam.
Viva Kritim Bhajato Sataiva Vande Guru Vicharan Adavindam
Kripagatri Bhagavata Sadhaiva. Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam.
Radhika Madhava Yodapada Madhvaya Lila Gunarupayam
Vivarita Madhavaya Prabhaya. Madhurya Vira Gunayupanam.
Dana Sadhana Rupasya Vande Guru Vicharan Adavindam
Radhishama Swadhana Lurupasya. Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam.
Ikundaruna Rati Kesija Jaya Vivir Pichaniya
Nikunya Yuno Radhike Vichija. Yaya Vivi Yupiya Prishaniya.
Rati Raksharati Vallabhasya Vande Guru Vicharan Adavindam
Natati Dasya Rati Valavasya. Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam.
Sakshat Haridena Samasta Shastra Uttasthatava Nitariva Sadhi
Sarvari Venam Samasta Shastre. Mukta Sattva Yatari Vatsami.
Upravoya Priya Eva Tasya Vande Buddha Vicharan Adavindam
Hindu Prabhoya Priya Ivantasya. Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam.
Prasadat Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasada Nagati Kutoki
Yasya Prasada Bhagavad Prasada. Yasya Prasada Bhagavad Kutopi.
Yanti Vamsa Shayashasti Santam Vande Buddha Ticharan Adavindam
Nyaya Sundam Sansya Yasya Sandhyam. Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam.
Vande Buddha Sri Charan Adavindam Vande Buddha Sri Charan Adavindam
Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam. Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam.
Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gauravati Vasati Bhakta Vrinda.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Purivagativacarya Darsata Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jaya Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Purivagativacarya Darsata Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Prem Sikala Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Govindata Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Swami Ki Jai. Ganga Mai ki jai, Yamuna Mai ki jai, Tulsi Devi ki jai, Devi ki jai, Samveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories of the assembled Gaur Premanandi. Namaste Narasingaya,
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Pralada Lada Daine, Kanya Kasi Porvacha,
Yanyakashi Purvacha.
Sitatankala Kala Ye,
Shivantankara Kalaye.
Dona Singha Varadona Singha,
Yoni Singha Varatoni Singha.
Toya Toya Mita Tona Singha,
Doya Doya Nidayoni Singha.
Singha Hridayan Singha,
Mahem Singha Hridayan Singha.
Singha Sharanam Prabhaje,
Singha Mani Sharanam Prabhade.
Kapakara Kamalavaje Natam, Adhuta Spingam, Daivayaranya Kasipu, Tanvingam, Keshavadra Narahari Rupa, Jaya Jagadisha Hare, Jaya Jagadisha Hare, Jaya Jagadisha Hare.
Prabhakara Kammaya Vare Vatam. Adhuta Chinta. Vanita Hiranyakashipu. Anubrinda. Keshavadrita Nagapani Rupa. Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Jaya Jagadisha Hare.
Keshavadutta Narahari Rupa, Jaya Jagadisha Hare, Jaya Jagadisha Hare, Jaya Jagadisha Hare.
Keshavadrita Nagapani Rupa. Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Jaya Jagadisha Hare.
Singha Bhagavan ki.
Jai.
So, where's Jagovinda?
Arriba. Arriba.
Oh,
Upstairs.
doesn't he give a class? Is Jagovinda giving
He
class?
has not given class today.
Okay, well, we hear.
Okay.
Shami, lo que tem que ayudar a estudiar. Sinaki from your thing, right?
I'm not gonna listen to your class shortly.
Oh,
One class you give today. One for you got inspiration already for Krishna. How can you? How can you deny her? Yeah. She came all the way here.
this is called a
Expression.
possibly after a guilt trip.
You want it?
What? Oh, give that pen.
I will think about it. No, it's about me, so. It's a report.
Oh, so
Test it to it.
oh. No. I'm sure. I guarantee I'm gonna get up, start to walk away. I mean, that's so predictable. These are Krishna West Wampers. Little chickens. Well, Jenny Linda.
You were saved by the bill. Yeah, you are.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya
Kunja Vihari
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Hari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Shodanandana Rajajana Dandijana Shodanandana Rajajana Dandijana Jamanatira Vanachari Vanatira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Hari
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara
Anandana Raja Janaranjana
Yashodanandana
Jamunatira Vanachari
Yamunatira Vanachari
Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari.
So, Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and purports by Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So, how'd that? Up to 7-13. Let's see what we got. So, Iti te bharta nirdesham
Iti Vedartha Vidrisham
adaya shirasadrita
Adaya Shriyasamritam
tata prajanam kadanam
Tata Prajanam Kavanam
vidatu kadana priyaha.
Vidatu Kavana Priya.
This is really bad. So, what these words mean. So, iti, thus. In other words, it's sort of concluding what happened in the previous verse. Yes, that's what, because iti often in Sanskrit is just like unquote. So therefore, the previous verse was a direct instruction from Gold Cushion, Hiranyakashipu, Yatra Yatra Tvija Gabo. So wherever the previous verse, let me go back to the previous verse 1 second. Because iti, no, the previous. Oh, I see what you're doing. Yes. So yatra yatra means where, and yatra means wherever, like yada, when, yada, whenever. So wherever there are dvija, twice-borns, gavo, cows, vedas, varnashrama kriya, and varnashram activities, tung, go to all of those. Janapada, literally a people place, means like a country. Probably translates it Janapada, city or town. Literally, like Jana, that's what we have English words like gent, like in Spanish, gente. I mean, literally, it's phonetically be gente. So that's Jana, Jantu, gente. And so Janapada, people places. Go to all the people places. Sounds better in Sanskrit. Yata is the command, go to all the all the people, places, Sandipayata, and set fire. Whoa. Vrishchata, and cut everything down, cut down all the trees. So that's sounds like some politicians we read about. So thus means unquote. That the previous verse was a direct quote from Hiranyakashipu. Iti te, thus they, barter nirdesham adaya, taking the barter. Barter means their master, lord, translated here as master. The Sanskrit verb per, or of course in American Sanskrit bri, but it's actually bur with a vowel r. It means to main. In fact, we have an English word from that, the word bear, like to bear a heavy load. And so same meaning. So parter, the bearer or the carrier, the one who sustains. It can mean to maintain someone. Like for example, in Sanskrit, a husband is often called partha, or parter means the maintainer, the one who carries the economic burden. Also, the English word burden is related with it. So parter, there's a very common little phrase you find in the Bhagavatam and in Vaishnava songs, bhuvo para, the burden of the earth, or bhubhara. So Krishna, it said many, many places that Krishna came bhuvo para jihirshaya, because he wanted to take away the burden of the earth. So anyway, a husband is called partha when it's the subject of the sentence, or parter, which means one who maintains the family, who carries the burden of maintaining financially maintaining the family, not emotionally, as we know. So bearing the burden of the family, and the wife is called parya, the one who is to be maintained. So therefore, it's the duty of the man, his first responsibility. It's actually the definition of the words. It's like a partha and parya. Parya means the one who has to be maintained. It's the duty of the man to maintain the women. And so here, so partha can also mean the master. So here they're in a sense they're literally master. So partha nirdesham. It's very interesting. The instruction. I mean, there's so many, even like idiomatic similarities in English and Sanskrit. For example, in English, we say to point out something. To point out, señalar. And so this literally means, because near means out, and desha means to point. Desha means a direction. Or like you say, like the different points on the compass, those are dish or desha. So desha means a direction, or therefore a region, therefore can mean a country, like Gora desha. So near desha, and so therefore desha, or the verb, it comes from the verb dish, and therefore it can mean like a direction, therefore it can mean like an instruction. Even in English, you say you instruct someone or you direct someone. And so therefore you have, for example, upadeshamrita, which means the nectar of instruction, which literally like pointing out or directing. And that same word upadesha is in the Gita, where Krishna says, those who have knowledge will teach you knowledge, upadekshanti. Upadekshanti is just the plural. I'm sorry, it is plural, future tense, upadekshanti. Upadeshanti means he instructs, and upadekshati means he will instruct. So it's all related. So here, Hiranyakashipu gave a nirdesha. He gave literally a pointing out, or he gave a direction. And so it's translated the direction. And that's why it can mean like a region, like Uttar Pradesh in India. Anyway, it's all Sanskrit, so it's a very interesting language when you actually get into it. So, iti te, so thus they, Adaya, taking. It's interesting because da in Sanskrit means to give, like danam, gift or donate. That's where we get donation. Or in Spanish, dar, in Portuguese, same word. And so as a prefix often reverses the meaning. Like, for example, gachati means he or she goes, but agachati means he or she comes. And so similarly, da can mean to give, and adai means to take. So the can do different things as a prefix. Kind of a whole class on that prefix. But anyway, but here and often it sort of reverses the meaning. So adaya instead of giving means taking or receiving. So receiving that nirdesham, that instruction, that pointing out of their master Bhartar, Shirasa on their head. So what does it mean to take an instruction on your head? This is it's interesting because this gets into they didn't literally, it's not like he gave them like a little paper and they just taped it onto their heads. So, and what you find in Vedic culture is this very common, what I call symbolic anatomy. Symbolic anatomy. So that it's interesting because the people who don't really get it think this is anthropomorphism, like thinking that the human body or human-like body is somehow special is just, I don't know, like some kind of animal propensity to think that your type of animal is somehow most important, but it's not. There is something divine originally about the human form, And it's not anthropocentrism, it's actually theocentrism. Because it's taking God. You see, they beg the question. Modern thinkers, they have this incredible ability to beg the question. Actually, that's the original meaning of beg the question. Sorry, I'm not using the new modern version of it, which means that begs the question. That brings up the question. It's not the original meaning, but anyway, I've lost that battle. So, and they think that, okay, because we have a human body and we are projecting onto God our own characteristics. But there's another possibility, and that is that we really are made in God's image. And therefore, Krishna has projected his form onto us. So which is it? Well, that is what is called that's like a basic assumption. And so we have different assumptions. In philosophy, as Aristotle pointed out, he's one of my earliest disciples. Anyway, as Aristotle pointed out, you have to state something self-evident, something which doesn't have to be proved. Because if everything has to be proved, then you immediately slip into an infinite regress of proofs. And so therefore you could never prove anything. You could never know anything. And so since we do claim to know things, like, for example, that other people have minds, or some other people have minds. So, but the fact that other people are conscious, you can't prove that you are not the only conscious being on the earth and everyone else is just an illusion which is somehow projected into the world. Or it's just your brain is telling you that. You can't prove that there's, but of course you can prove it. That's Aristotle's point. You can't prove it empirically. You can't, because if you take the basic assumption that you are just hallucinating, that you are imagining that other people actually have minds, then any proof is just another projection. So therefore, something has to be basic. Something has to literally be the base. It's like a house. You have to, they have that expression, castles in the air.
Mm-hmm.
And which they also have in Sanskrit, by the way. So the foundation is that there must be something which does not require a proof. And that's the foundation. Like you build a house, you can't start with a roof. Vamos a empezar con el techo. I mean, it just doesn't work like that. So, and Lord Chaitanya, by the way, said the same thing. Lord Chaitanya, in his conversation with Sarvabhauma and also with Prakashananda, said that the Vedic knowledge, the knowledge coming to us from the sacred literature and Veda sort of broadly understood, he said it is swata pramana. It is evident, swata, by itself. So he literally used the word self-evident.
Mm.
So it's nice. Lord Chaitanya either was a super soul in Aristotle's heart, or he read Aristotle. So those two possibilities, I think it's the first one. So, so therefore, do we project our form onto God, or has God projected his form onto us? Because this is the form in which people can understand God. And that is an assumption. You can't empirically prove this or that. In fact, the very idea that like a materialist is going to prove that we are doing the projecting is philosophically comical. It's like a, to say in Spanish, chiste de mal gusto. It's just ridiculous. It's not philosophy at all. It's just silliness. And it's also pseudo-psychology. So the human form is, but now, because the human-like form is so special, in the earliest Vedic literature, society is sort of conceptually, not physically, projected onto a cosmic body of God, which is called the Virata Rupa. So you find this in the 10th book of the Rig Veda, in a prayer called the Purusha Sukta. Sukta is very interesting. Su means good, like euphony, eugenics, so that's EU is Sanskrit SU. I've explained that many times. So, so the Purusha, so Su Ukta means well spoken. Ukta from Vach, Uvacham. So Su Ukta means well, or Suktis, or Su Ukta, well spoken. So the Purusha Sukta, which means like a hymn or a beautiful statement. In the 10th book of the Rig Veda, where the Brahmins are the head of the cosmic form, the Kshatras, the arms, etc. So, therefore, literally this time, the Vedic literature, the oldest Vedic literature, the human body is not, it's not something that just evolved, and therefore, because we tend to be self-centered, we project it onto God. It's the exact opposite. So we have to, it's the exact opposite, that God has projected his form onto us. A similar form. So anyway, so therefore, because of that, a very powerful theme throughout Vedic literature, and even in the samsara prayers we just sang, is what I call symbolic anatomy. Symbolic anatomy, so that we, again, to worship Vande Guru Sri Charanaravinda, to worship the lotus feet of the Guru does not mean to become a pedicurist. Although as the Guru gets older, he'd use a pedicurist disciple. So it means, and so you find this symbolic anatomy everywhere. First of all, this powerful symbol of the feet. And it's interesting because the word for feet, actually many of the words for feet in Sanskrit, like charana, pada, and everything, literally mean going, or therefore it means behavior, the activities. So we're actually honoring the activities of the Guru. The lotus, and again, lotus, another symbol, because lotus is so beautiful, therefore it just means, it becomes like an adjective, which means like beautiful. So So here, getting back to this verse, taking the instructions on one's head. So it doesn't mean they literally carried around, they taped a piece of paper or something like that. What it means is, it means humbly taking it. So as the feet. So if you honor the feet of someone, it means you're putting that person above you. Because and similarly, if you take instructions on your head, it means you are submitting to them. You are humbly following them. And just like an example of the symbolic anatomy, where Ashwatthama, horse neigh, the neigh is the sound of a horse. That's what it means. Uttama means like the sound a horse makes. And so Ashwatthama means when he's born, he made this sound like a horse, which was clearly not auspicious. So they took it. So let's go on now. So they took it on their head, which is a symbolic way of saying they fully submitted to it. Itite barter desham adaya shirasa, by the head, adrita, and humble, very humble. How Prabhupada translates this, respecting. Tata, like that, prajanam kadana. Kadana means like atrocity. Prabhupada translates it here, persecuting others. Yeah, kadana means like just some cruel act of aggression or persecution. So they vidadhu, they executed. Prabhupada translated here, executed. So they executed this persecution, these atrocities, prajanam, against the people, all the people, all living beings. Katana priyaha, because they like to perform atrocities. It's like, hey, let's have fun. Let's go, murder and torture some people. So it's really bad. It's just very evil. Priya means dear, and we have the English word pleasure. Priya means dear, or to like love. So to say that someone is like Krishna Priya means someone who's Priya, what is very dear to that person is Krishna. Or it can mean Krishna is dear to that person, depending grammatically what kind of compound you make it. So what they love to do, like, hey, it's Saturday, what do you want to do? Let's go torture some people. So these are really bad people. These are like really classic villains. They're Kadana Priyana. So that's the previous, that's today's verse. Okay, so let's read Prabhupada's translation. Thus, the demons, being fond of disastrous activities, that's Kadana Priya, fond of, took Hiranyakashipu's instructions on their heads with great respect, that's Adrata, with great respect, and offered him obeisances. According to his directions, they engaged in envious activities directed against all living beings. So it's interesting, Prabhupada gives different translations for the same word, kadana priya. First time he translates it as disastrous activities. The second time he translates it as envious activities. So it's actually the same Sanskrit word, kadana. So Prabhupada's purport, the followers of demoniac principles, as described here, are thoroughly envious of the general populace. I mean, look at that guy, you don't have to get into these things, but in Russia, where like 1 million people are being mutilated, killed, and he's just always thinking, I want to do this. Just sort of, it's interesting. It takes a certain kind of sociopathy, I guess. Now we give it sociological terms or psychological terms. like a sociopath or a narcissist. It's interesting because in the Bhagavatam, they're given moral terms. And it's kind of sort of the, how would you put it, just sort of the, using sort of scientific, pseudo-scientific neutral language and sort of, how'd you, like stripping things, taking away all their moral content. Yeah, of course, if you say sociopath, it sounds like a bad person also, but there's a tendency, although and people in general kind of resist it. So like sociopath for a psychologist could just be a clinical term, but in the general population, it's considered to be someone who's morally defective. So in Sanskrit, they tend to use a descriptive term which gives the moral status of particular behavior. And they don't simply try to give some clinical term which means, well, it's not that this person is morally bad, it's just they have a sort of a neurological condition. So it's interesting, you can even see the kinds of words which are used to describe evil behavior. So the followers of demoniac principles, as described here, are thoroughly envious of the general populace. In the present day, scientific advancement exemplifies such envy. The discovery of nuclear energy has been disastrous to people in general because demons all over the world are manufacturing nuclear weapons. The word kadana priyaha is very significant in this regard. The demoniac persons who want to kill the Vedic culture are extremely envious of the feeble citizens, and they act in such a way that ultimately their discoveries will be inauspicious for everyone. Jagato Hitaha, that's from the Gita, chapter 16, describing the demons. Hita means like benefit, welfare, and ahita means against the good, against what is good for people. And so Jagato Ahita, so these people are working against the world. They're not their goal is not the good of people in general. Oh, so Prabhupada says the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita fully explains how the demons engage in sinful activities for the destruction of the populace. So we're obviously in a similar situation now. If you look at history, especially history outside India, it's just, there were just always atrocities and it's just, unimaginable things. If you read history and you're actually very empathic, you'd probably stop reading history because it's just, like you just read something, okay, Alexander the Great, or so many other people, talk about the Tila the Hun, Genghis Khan, or so many people. And okay, they laid siege to a city, the city resisted. So therefore, when cities and all these demonic leaders do this, whether it's Genghis Khan, whether it's Alexander, if you lay siege to a city and it doesn't open the gates and let you in and just surrender, then you have to make them an example. Because strategically, if you have to fight your way into every city, it's impossible because eventually you become exhausted. So what you do is, and this was common, this is what they all did. When you go to the first city, if they resist, if they don't open the gates of a city, then when you finally break in, you essentially kill everyone, kill all the men, and the women, you probably rape them first, or you why waste a female body, so the first they'll rape them and then kill them, or sell them into slavery, let's make some money out of this, let's recoup our the war expenses. And sometimes the men sell them into slavery, the children, and basically you just annihilate the city. And that way, when the news arrives in the next city, by the time you get there, the gates are open. And so, whereas in India, we know from historical documents like the writings of Megasthenes, the Greek ambassador to India about 2,300 years ago, 2,400 years ago, almost 2,500 years ago, that in India, it was probably the only place that I've ever heard about where you don't kill civilians. I mean, imagine a football game where the football players suddenly run up into the stands and start tackling the spectators, you know, and throwing them down. I mean, they don't do that. Football game is just for the players. And so in India, war was just for the players.
Hmm.
There was much higher moral standard. So anyway, you see in Kali Yuga just this. I mean, if you read history, okay, they broke into this city and then they, killed all the men. I mean, just think. I mean, these are cities. Often, if you read this, especially if you read like Genghis Khan and what they did, or even other people, these were cities where people had nice houses, they had birthday parties. There were a lot of people there with their young girls who were looking forward to their marriage, and people are going to schools. I mean, just like we live in Gainesville right now, and there are young people going to schools. There are people getting married, and there are family events. Like you just take a walk in all these nice houses, and in every house there were families, there were real people, mothers and fathers, and children, and marriages, and people going to school. People had lives, and so these cities in ancient times, they were actually very sophisticated. They had philosophy schools, they had other schools, they had lawyers, they had recreation, there were parks, there was beautiful architecture. They had beautiful weddings and traditions, and grandfathers and grandmothers. I mean, it was a whole civilization. And then suddenly people break in and just with knives and swords, just like cutting everyone to pieces, killing everyone, raping the women. These are mothers, daughters, sisters. It's just like and it was not that uncommon. And so if you read history, it's almost like you can't read it so bad. And yet, and that's Kali Yuga. So, and we see it happening today, where if the people protest because the leaders are just, cruel and trying to control their lives too much, they just come out with machine guns and just shoot them down. Never mind it's someone's father, someone's mother, someone's brother, sister, or child. It's just so this thing about demons, it's not just like well, that's just like something, a word out of Indian comic books. So that's the world we live in. I mean, in that sense, we're very fortunate. Here we are in America now, and we're in a nice college town. But actually, if you look at the Kali Yuga, it's awful. It's almost like more than you can even bear to think about. And so here we have a story of Hiranyakashipu, so it's not a new thing. So, are we broadcasting?
Mhm.
Oh. Hi. Yes, Your Grace.
When you were talking about learning history and getting so depressed when learning, I remember that,
Depressed.
yeah, kind of having a shock of
Yes, of
reality.
course.
And when I was doing my undergrad in history, I remember that me and all my classmates, we got so depressed reading the texts and getting in contact with like colonization and wars and the excuses and the numbers. And everybody was so shocked, so depressed. Like, really, we were shocked about the reality, how history of human being has been done. And also, I wanted to ask you if you think that this kind of approach to evil, psychopath, sociopath, and this all psychological terms could be also understood as an antithesis of what we are talking about, like the bad approach regarding evil, and then this kind of materialistic, neurological answer into that. So you don't go into the point of evil, like you don't go into the root, you avoid the root, and then you give a neurological term as an antithesis for the thesis that we were talking about.
Yeah, well, it's yes, the idea of in the West, it's interesting, like we can't impose our values on others.
And that's
And then you get all these terms like you cannot interfere in the internal affairs of another country. It's very interesting because practically every country today, everything we call a country, is actually a result of colonization. For example, when the Portuguese, when the Portuguese came to Brazil, there were many, many countries, which like Indian nations, same thing in North America, even in England. I mean, if you look at historical maps of the British Isles, it was many countries. So another thing I find interesting is that the nation state has somehow now been normalized, like that is the natural size and diversity of a human state. So like you can't interfere in the internal affairs of other countries. But sometimes the governments, first of all, those countries were formed by colonizing regional kingdoms.
interfering.
Yeah. And then once the country is formed, it's somehow or other, if something is a country, then it's sacred. And so moral obligations, like if you're walking down the street and you see someone, let's say, abusing another person, my younger brother, when he was much younger, he was walking down the street, I think in Beverly Hills, and he saw someone, some guy was like holding up a lady or something, so he just jumped out and tackled him, and the police said that was really nice, but don't do that in the future, it's dangerous. But it's interesting because somehow this somewhat arbitrary political category, which is the nation, is more sacred than even moral principles, like you should not torture and murder people. That somehow torturing and murdering, you have no moral obligation to condemn that. You have no moral obligation to interfere if it's protected by the sacred political status of being a nation, which is very interesting. And it's, isn't it? So, and it's because basically the sort of like the normative size of a political entity is really dictated by completely amoral, you could say, material factors. And that is just like by history, how big, in other words, there was some person conquering, and how much did that person conquer? That becomes a nation. And once it's declared to be a nation, it's a sacred entity. And so even if the dictator, even if someone is torturing, murdering children, women, innocent people, still your moral obligation to stop that is subordinate to, is less important than your moral obligation to recognize the sacred status of a particular political entity. It's interesting, isn't it? If you just think about it objectively. Oh, because it's like, what was the Roman Empire? That's just as far as they could go. And there was the Pax Romana. People actually, in many ways, their lives are improved because there was peace, and people in general were much more secure. But in Hollywood, empires are always bad, like the evil empire, against the democratic Republican resistance in Star Wars. But then again, Hollywood was never accused of being intelligent. But it's interesting because say you look at the Roman Empire, and sure, let's say if you were in Rome, if you were actually in the heart of the empire, or later Constantinople, where people were fighting for power, yeah, there were bad things. But let's say you lived in Spain, Or let's say you lived in what is now Turkey, which is very much part of the Roman Empire. Let's say you lived in North Africa. Relatively, the amount of violence was radically reduced. You had more rights, you had more freedom, you had security, your family was secure. And so there was, with all the evil of it, the Pax Romana meant that you could travel for hundreds or thousands of miles and basically be safe. And there were good roads everywhere. It's interesting. What is that? The Monty Python movie. I think it's The Life of Brian. Like, what did the Romans ever give us? Well, there's good roads. Yeah. Well, what else did the Romans ever give us?
Yeah.
Well, they go down the list. What?
The aqueducts.
The aqueducts. Yeah. There's still an aqueduct in Caesarea in Israel. When I go to Israel, many times I stayed in that area. It was beautiful. Anyway, so it's interesting how you can see how these moral views are actually very arbitrary. They're not based on any serious philosophical principle. Anyway, yes.
Could one say that it's a moral obligation, like Israel, Iran, or America against Iran, that one stronger country should?
Well, I'm not going to get into that particular war right now because it's too easy to, for people to go crazy. But it gets into the whole. It gets into, and this is sort of like the ethical philosophy of ethics. Under what conditions are you obliged to act morally? And under what conditions are you not morally obliged? But you can see how, if you look at the different, like the left and the right in America, or some in Europe, certainly, there's not a lot of deep thinking going on. It's just slogans. Most people, when they've memorized a few slogans, they've kind of exhausted their intellectual capacity by memorizing a few slogans. Woody.
Just
Sure.
recently did a Sanskrit English similar Swastika sister. And I was just thinking, isn't this like Rother versus Barter?
Oh, Bratra is a different word.
It's very similar. It just doesn't mean the same thing.
No. It's just like it's a false cognate. Yeah, the words aren't related.
Okay.
Yes.
Say that they took the information to the head as the humbleness because it's the highest part of your body. But in one sense, I was thinking they should take something with the heart because normally it's more deep if you take it from the heart than from the head. Is there anything like that in the sun?
That's kind of like.
You Richie?
No, I mean, I hate to make gender generalizations because I'm too young to die. But celui toujours par mourir. So, but
Because Christians in the heart or something.
yes, but he also says knowledge comes from me. The heart, and there are, of course, like sort of brain type cells in the heart. But well, I think in this case, they're not really taking in their heart because they don't seem to have hearts. If you say you take something in your heart, it means you really understand it. You have the proper feelings. But showing respect, I mean, we could say instead of offering obeisance with our head, we could just do a belly flop, like a big flop on the ground, so our heart hits the ground first. But and I think it's part of this modern thing about it's the heart, it's not the head. Yeah, the terrorists, they have a lot of heart, they have a lot of emotions, but they don't have much brain. And so I like the balance. I think it's very healthy to have a heart and also a brain. And then you get it right. But yes.
Oh, sorry, can I?
But I'd say, well, in this case, though, obviously, you see, the Bhagavatam would not say they took it in their heart because they're sort of heartless people.
That was wondering if it does used sometimes.
Really, yeah. Sometimes said that someone in their heart, like, is something like accepted something in their heart. But usually when that's used, it doesn't mean some foolish emotion. It means really took in their heart. And so to take something in your heart means it somehow connects with Krishna, because Krishna's in the heart. So in this case, they couldn't accept the instructions in their heart because they're heartless, so to speak.
And this verse kind of showed the bad sense of submission, like as we see, as we were mentioning, like people in war, like killing
Yes,
in the village people, and also Nazis when you're just accepting an order without thinking about that, being blindly.
yes, yes. Of course, but Prabhupada's point is you have to submit to someone.
Yes.
So it's like if you it's like you say, I'm not going to eat that food because it's unhealthy. Well, are you going to starve or find healthy food? So the idea that you will live without submitting to anyone is just sort of foolish vanity. Like there's a leftist, far left political party in France called France Insoumise, like the unbowed France. It's not going to submit to anyone. But of course, the person that came up with that name is going to die, so he is going to have to submit to the laws of nature. So he's going to have to submit to many other things because they generally lose the elections. But still, yeah, it's just, courage is one thing, but foolishness is another. So you have to choose to what you're going to submit. And if you say, I won't submit to anything, then nature will submit you. So the idea that I will not submit to anything, not an option. And then you get the default submission to old age and death. Yes.
You were mentioning about us being created in image of God. Is animal kingdom also a reflection of spiritual world, a kind of spiritual horses or dogs are there, and that's why they are here?
Yeah, it's a reflection. Yes. I wonder what eternal skunks are like.
Emojis.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone gets an eternal cockroach body. But who knows?
Skunks,
What?
skunks can emit beautiful smells.
Yeah, beautiful fragrance. Well, if, like Prabhupada sometimes said, the lowest here is the highest there. So maybe there's like that would really be take some mental adjustment, like an eternal cockroach.
Yeah.
It would be a bit frustrating.
Yeah, the good news is you're not going to get to the spiritual world if you try to surrender and you practice bhakti yoga. Really? I'm a cockroach or I'm a tree. And so the thing is, yeah, sometimes there's like this anxiety amongst some devotees, like, what if I'm stuck forever in some? No, but it's Vaikuntha because your spiritual body is just a manifestation of your own desire. There's no imposition.
We have it done. Form.
Yeah, don't worry, you'll be good looking.
You signed the contract.